Hello everybody, welcome to Red Tool House. So 2 weeks ago, we took our 6 pigs into the processor and the results are back and I want to share those with you all. So come along, we'll see how they turned out. So if you follow the channel, you know last April, we went over to the Shenandoah Valley, over to Revercomb Farms, owned by Mindy Lipinski and her family, and bought 6 Berkshire Bluebutt Cross piglets. Loaded those up, brought them back here, and of course, raised those out. And what we did, of course, we established our training paddock right here behind us, and we introduced the pigs to the North Ridge, which had been laying fallow for almost 2 years. We hadn't had any pigs on that side since our red wattles. So we gave them access to some new ground that had grown up quite a bit. With this herd of pigs, we also gave them free choice feed, dry ration, which is different than what we did with our red wattles, where we soaked and fermented the feed, and I gave it to them in a daily ration. So this year a little different with keeping it dry and also free choice, so unlimited feed source. So the 3rd week of October was our processing date. I got everybody loaded up, even though there was one straggler. It took him a week later, we got him there. But within the course of a week, 2 trips, we got all 6 hogs up at the processor. So the meat's starting to come back and we've got the results. And for the past 5 years, I've always done a video where I'm sharing our processing results with you all, so you can see what we're seeing when we want to look at the results and just what our profitability was. So first, I'd like to talk about the processor themselves. If you guys followed the channel for any time or followed our podcast where we talk about this kind of stuff all the time, then you know I've been struggling for years with processors. The last processor we used that was a massive, brand new, beautiful facility, multi-million dollars invested, all kinds of things right in our capital city, did an absolute horrible job, lost product, got things mixed up, and finally they went out of business. They just couldn't stay viable anymore, and they went out of business earlier this year. So for this run, we tried a brand new processor to us, and they were an hour's drive away, further towards central West Virginia, headed towards the mountains up on 79. Those of you guys that are local know what that means. And they did a fantastic job. So far, really been impressed. Small custom shop, but also state inspected. So they're that mid-level. They're not USDA. They're state inspected and custom. Very clean facility. Easy to load, unload. Their unloading dock, flat ground, easy to back into. So that was great to be able to handle. Very friendly, good customer service. Packaging was great. Fees were reasonable. Their kill fee for a hog was $55, which was great. Their processing for custom was 75 cents a pound hanging. So I was really happy with how the processing fees turned out. If I had one criticism, and this is just slight, and this is for a lot of the processors I've run into, this genre of business just doesn't really embrace technology well. It would be nice for a processor to have a little bit of electronic transfer opportunities where you could upload or download cut sheets, customer cut sheets, maybe even track a little bit of your order online. But even receipts at the end, computer receipts, stuff they can email you versus handwritten receipts of your expenses. It is what it is, and maybe as they grow, if they keep doing the customer service they're doing, then they can invest in those things. So let's talk about the actual pork results that we got. Oh, there goes Liam. So the pigs were exactly, they were 8 months and 1 week old. That last one, of course, was 8 months and 2 weeks old because he got to hang around on the farm an extra week. But yeah, so just a cat's whisker over 8 months. And let me read these hanging weights to you. So the 6 hanging weights we had, 261. These are hanging weights. 261, 251, 220, 244, 234, and 253. So that free feed choice really showed up big time in this litter. So in 8 months, to be able to go from the entire life cycle, 8 months life cycle, to go to those type of hanging weights. So that should put our live weight, if you go with that 72% hanging weight 72% of live weight, then I think that puts us somewhere around almost 400 pound live weight hog. So That's pretty good grow out. I think another thing that helped that, of course, was the amount of mast we had on the north pasture. That's kind of why I kept them where they were. I didn't move them further up into the open pasture simply because there was just so much mast. We had a lot of acorn, we had a lot of hickory, and a lot of... Are you eating pig poop? You are, aren't you? That's just great. Let's close this, shall we? So that access to mast really helped. In fact, I think if you go back to the video where we were trying to load, they weren't that super starved to come in here into the trailer at first because they had plenty of mast to access. So I think that helped with some of our final weights there as well. As far as the quality of the meat goes, what we've seen so far, really good marbling. Really like the fat cap on the pork chops, just how things have really balanced out. The marbling throughout, the roasts, everything looks really good. In fact, Cam and I brought a lot of the processed stuff back. Had the sausage and the links and some other things. We were so excited about it that we got some defrosted and immediately had that for dinner. So we had breakfast for dinner that night. We brought things back and really turned out great. Don't have the bacon back yet because it's, of course, going through the natural smoke process. But if it's anything like the rest of the pig, then we should have some really nice bacon. So we may do a snapshot on our community tab or something over on our Facebook page when we get that in, so you guys can see some close-ups of that. The lard, we of course capture all of our lard. I was really happy with how the processor did it. They actually ground it, so I got ground lard back, so it's going to make it that much easier to render. And it came back just buttery smooth. I mean, just really nice, good quality lard, good texture, perfect color, and a really good scent as well. Let that dry out. Take that back up on the hill. So what about feed conversion? Well, feed conversion is the nerdy part. That's where I really like to dive down deep and just see how this compares with previous herds that we've done. And with feed conversion, I look at, to me, the smoking gun number, or the key number. Gotta wash that pig poop taste out of your mouth, don't you? Yeah. The key number I look for is the number of pounds of feed it takes to create 1 pound of hanging weight. So I calculate that by taking the total weight of feed, add up all the hanging weights, of course, add those up, do the division there, and that's how we get to this number. And I've got this number written down and actually went back to our last 5 years. So the last five herds or 5 processes that we've had. And my worst number in that 5 years, it was actually all the way back in 2020, maybe it had something to do with COVID, was 7.6 pounds. So it took 7.6 pounds of feed to produce 1 pound of hanging weight. So my best number, which I think was in 23, was 4.1 pounds of feed to create 1 pound of hanging. This year, this herd, it came out at 5.4. So it's below median. So I'm really satisfied with that conversion number, despite the 2 big things working against me this year on that conversion. And that, of course, is the dry feed and free choice. So the issue with dry feed, of course, is that it's just that, it's dry. It's less digestible. I've talked about this in previous videos, different podcast episodes, where weighing the benefit of feeding the pigs the feed the way that it comes. So it comes from most feed stores, feed mills, dry, whether it's pelletized, whether it's powder like this is. All of our local feed mills, it's almost like flour. It's so powdery. You do have chunks of corn and those type of things, but it is very powdery. And so if you feed that to the pigs, you get a lower digestibility rate compared to soaking it and even fermenting it like we did with our red wattles 2 years ago, year and a half ago, technically. Soaking and fermenting that allows some of that to break down so the pig's body can digest that better. And the easiest way to see that, of course, is if you want to be gross, you just examine pig manure. Take a pile of pig manure, break it apart, and if you see a lot of undigested feed, then you know, okay, what can we do to improve that? When we soaked and fermented, then you would inspect the fecal material and you wouldn't have hardly any feed bits in there. You wouldn't have those chunks of corn. You wouldn't have some of those other elements in there. So that's one of the big issues with dry feed. Now with free choice feed, on top of that, the issue you have, of course, is waste. If I were to push this thing over, I bet you we'd have a big pile of feed under there, just because the very nature of the pigs with their noses rooting around doing all that stuff, they flip some stuff out. And that feed, when it hits the ground, it gets trampled into the dirt and they don't eat it. Sometimes the wind blows heavy with this powder. Sometimes it actually blows some of it away. Fortunately, during most of their life cycle, fortunately, unfortunately, however you want to look at it, we didn't get a lot of rain, so we didn't have a lot of feed getting washed away. But for example, here where the feed spot is now, anything that would get kicked out would go right in the water and it would be absolutely wasted. So those two things make that feed conversion number higher simply because it reduces the efficiency of getting digestible food inside the pig's belly. So what about the economics of this? How did it pencil out? As you guys know, we do things on the farm here where we try to generate some additional revenue to help offset the costs. And this 6 pigs is no different. But I did do things a little differently in the sense, normally we hold back 2 hogs for our personal consumption with a family of 4 here. The boys are still living at home. So the family of 4, usually 2 pigs will get us through the year. Well, this year I wanted to hold back an extra pig. So I wanted to sell 3 and keep 3. With my sales, I was actually only able to sell 2.5. Really didn't push it too hard and just wasn't able to close that last half sale out. So we brought back 3.5 and sold 2.5. So my scale tipped a little bit more. So I got way more pork than, in fact, our freezers are busting at the seams, all 5 of them right now. So we've got our 5 freezers completely full. And so we've got plenty of pork, but we did sell 2.5. And I'm going to get my notes out here so I don't give you guys bad numbers from memory. But let's just look and see what we had here. Yeah, so the way we sell hogs, and I haven't changed my rate I don't think I've ever changed my rate, come to think of it. So in 13 years, was I selling pigs? Let's just say an even 10. So within the last 10 years, with everything that's been going on, inflation and all that, I still haven't changed my per pound rate, which I probably should. But I sell a whole hog at $3.50 a pound hanging, and a half hog at $4.50 a pound hanging. And as I mentioned, I sold 2.5 pigs. So the gross on that was $2,284.75. Processing costs, when I sell whole and half, those get passed on to the customer. The 3.5 pigs I brought back, of course, I have to do those processing costs. The cost to purchase and feed the pigs for their entire life cycle was $23.76. So if you do the math real quick, we're $91 in the hole before I factor in my processing fees on my 3.5. The processing fee on the 3.5 is going to be, I haven't got the smoked meat back yet, and that's an additional process fee. But the way things are looking, it's going to be right at $1,000 for my 3.5. So $1,000 added to the negative 91, so we're negative $1,100 will just be a safe estimate there. So you say, well, Troy, okay, so you lost $1,100. Technically, yes, I spent $1,100 more than I brought in. So yes, I lost that, but if we were going to quantify the value of 5 freezers full of pork, then of course, that all pencils out and makes sense. Yeah. One other key point when I look at my $1,100 loss is the cost of my feed. This year I paid about 15% more for feed because I chose to go to a different feed store. And that was purely out of convenience and out of business relationship. But this new feed store is located in Charleston, which is our capital, which I find myself in regularly. At least once a week I find myself in that town for client meetings. So it was very beneficial for me to say, hey, I'm in town for a client meeting. I drive a truck everywhere I go. So swing by the feed store, grab 15 bags, 20 bags, toss them in the back of the truck and go on home. So I'm not having to go out of my way. The old feed store where I could get 15% cheaper feed was 1 hour out drive, completely the opposite direction from the farm to where I usually do business. and then of course an hour back. And that was a lot of 4-lane highway, so that was a lot of mileage. So a lot of gas, a lot of time, and you don't have to make that trip that way anymore. Now it's a lot of convenience being in town. And the other thing, it's not a huge issue, but the old feed store, to get the prices I was getting, I had to handle 100-pound feed sacks. At this store in Charleston, they only deal in 50-pound feed sacks. So as the older I get, the more my back appreciates that. So as of right now, as you're watching this video, we are pigless. We don't have a single pig on the farm. So what's next? Well, Kelly and I have been talking what we'd like to do, since we have almost 2 years of pork supply in the freezer. I would like to get back into breeding. That was one of my favorite things to do. I love having piglets on the farm. I really miss that. Buying feeders is fine. It's nice, of course, not having pigs to tend in the wintertime, but I want to get back into breeding. That's where my heart truly is. And if you follow the channel for a while, you know we had a lot of issues with farrowing. We had some disease, just couldn't figure out where it was. Chance it was ground born. So now this pasture has laid fallow for a year, maybe be a year and 4 months, I guess, by the time we get something in. But in the first quarter of 26, I'm going to start looking for some breed stock. I'd like to get 2 to maybe 3 gilts, bring those in, raise them up. So if they're piglets, raise them up, feed ration, do all the things that I did when I first started, kind of keeping those principles in place of making sure we don't put too much weight on a pig. I want to put them here on our south ridge, and utilizing, of course, we've got our farrowing barn, maybe some other structure here, get them raised up to breeding age, and then go back to AI, test some AI where these gilts, thinking more of a heritage line, bringing in a heritage line, and then breeding boar stock from AI that's maybe more mainline. So kind of get back into some of those crosses that I had at the beginning. I had Duroc Hampshire cross, we had some Berkshire Duroc cross. What else did we have? We had some blue butt Hampshire cross. No, we had some blue butt Duroc cross, and you really had good grow out times, but still really had good quality meat, and there still was a foraging capability in those pigs. They weren't totally unforageable. So I'd like to open up the south pasture a little bit more, expand more silvopasture further up the mountain, and just continue to do those type of things, and hopefully get a breed stock where we can have lots and lots of piglets. Maybe spring of 27, we've got piglets running all over the place here. But we'll see. I'm squirrel looking for a nut, so a lot of times plans change. But that's what I'm thinking right now. Well, comment below. Let me know what you guys think with the results that we got and the plans moving forward. I always like good input. There's a lot of you guys that watch the channel that are heavily involved in doing this type of production with pigs, so I really enjoy your feedback. Well, thank you so much for watching. I pray you have a great week. Take care.